remained suboptimal in many countries, leading to the eventual liberalization when the structural adjustment program set in the late 1980s. Most African countries closed their national development banks, but thanks to the vision and leadership of our country, led by His Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, Uganda Development Bank was not closed, but instead restructured and enabled to perform better. Many countries in the continent today are creating or strengthening their national development banks. It should be noted that the liberalization and disbursement of national development banks left a gap that could not be filled by the private-owned financial institutions for the obvious reasons: misalignment of objectives and structures, including regulatory frameworks with most and the broader national priorities of socio-economic transformation. Just as an example, in Uganda, only 11% of private sector goes to agriculture, 12% to manufacturing, while more than 45% of private sector credit goes to real estate and mortgages and personal loans, or what we sometimes call the non-GDP enhancing sectors. It is this gap in financing the productive and growth-enhancing sectors of the economy which have led to the rebirth of national development banks across the continent, specifically to provide financial interventions in the seemingly risky but growth-enhancing sectors of the economy. Indeed, for Uganda Development Bank, more than 80% of funding goes to private sector interventions in primary agriculture, agro-processing and manufacturing, infrastructure such as road construction, energy and water for production, while the rest is to the services interventions by the private sector, again in education, health, tourism, hospitality, as well as STI. With today's greater risks and opportunities as already highlighted, the relevance of national development banks is even greater. Climate change demands green financing solutions. National development banks can mobilize climate finance and support adaptation and mitigation efforts tailored to local contexts. Socioeconomic transformation requires trillions in investment. National development banks can align public and private capital to achieve inclusive growth. Digital transformation is reshaping economies and every economic sector. National development banks can finance digital infrastructure, support tech startups, and bridge the digital divide. The global financial architecture is evolving with rising interest rates, debt distress, and shifting donor priorities. African countries must build sovereign financing capacity. National development banks are central to this. Shrinking fiscal space amidst greater investment needs. This calls for innovative financial instruments such as blended finance to attract capital and crowding private investment into financing large public projects such as roads and energy infrastructure. Trade and investment shifts mean Africa must invest in value addition, regional integration, and industrialization. National development banks can finance these strategic sectors. The bold roles that national development banks must undertake include building local expertise and local capacity to structure complex infrastructure and other projects, generate demand rather than capture the demand for projects that already exist. Develop programs and deliver financial interventions under program approaches, especially for youth, SMEs, and startups. Working very closely with all government ministries, departments, and agencies to co-create and lead on designing and structuring projects. This will ensure well-designed projects can be delivered within timelines and in a cost-effective manner. Work with all stakeholders to mobilize and channel private capital through domestic capital markets. Perform transaction advisory and lead arranger roles for government projects, leveraging on their existing collaborations with key like-minded bilateral and multilateral financing organizations, and generate and lead policy conversations on key issues around its mandate and national development. Your Excellency, Uganda Development Bank is committed to being at the forefront of and shaping the development discourse in Uganda through not only financial interventions, but also thought leadership, and it's for this same reason that UDB has organized this summit. We have organized this summit to discuss and generate conversations on topics that are key to our mandate and for the country as we start to implement our 10-fold growth strategy. The keynote will briefly unpack the what and how of our theme. Other topics include a new development paradigm, advancing Africa's transformation through development finance, industrial policy, and private sector growth. Commercializing agriculture of the 21st century economy, what are the opportunities for Africa? Industries without smokestacks, a new approach to addressing Africa's youth crisis. The keynote on Africa economic development in perspective will be delivered. We'll discuss global trade shifts and implications for Africa, getting finance to work, economic transformation in a technologically driven world, and we hope to generate key actions to shape our interventions for the nation. Your Excellency, we thank you for your vision for our country, but importantly, for understanding the critical role national development banks are playing in economic transformation. When we move around, our colleagues and partners always ask us how and why we are capitalized. We tell them our government supports the bank and provides the required environment for the bank to work efficiently, and the government demands that the bank is run well and professionally. Special thanks also to our shareholders, the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Matia Kasaija, and the Minister for State for Investment and Privatization, Honorable Evelyn Anite. The board engages with them from time to time, and they are always on hand to provide any support required. Special thanks to our board members, past and present, currently led by Mr. Geoffrey Kihuguru. These board members are governance gurus, and they ensure correct governance structures and systems are upheld at all times. One of the past chairmen used to say that we must demonstrate that government institutions can be run well. My staff at UDB, EXCO members, and the entire staff body, in UDB we have a common purpose, which is to improve the quality of life of all Ugandans. As we do that, we are bound by our culture, ritual, Twende Pamoja. Thank you, Team UDB. It's not just me, but everyone who interacts with you says you are the best. As I conclude, this summit is a platform to imagine how national development banks can be empowered, not just as lenders, but as architects of national financing ecosystems. We must explore innovative financial and non-financial interventions to accelerate economic development through new technologies and sustainability considerations. We must forge strategic partnerships with domestic and global players to create a national ecosystem that enables decent job creation, transforming industries, boosting our exports, and reducing reliance on imported goods. Capitalize on domestic capital, both human and natural assets, for driving sustainable growth. Strong governance, transparency, and impact measurement to build trust and scale. And let us advocate for policy interventions that enable national development banks to thrive. That is adequate capitalization, technical independence, and alignment with national development plans at all times. As we begin this summit, let us be bold in our vision and collaborative in our approach. Africa's transformation will not be imported. It will be financed, built, and led from within. And national development banks will be at the forefront of that journey. Thank you, and I look forward to rich dialogue and partnerships that will emerge from this summit for God and my country.
Your Excellency, Mama Janet, one of the things that the CEO managed to elucidate was the importance of partnerships and collaboration. And she touched on the fact also that some of the key objectives of the next 2 days is to be able to share best practices, which we've already started doing. Our keynote address is going to be done by Arshad Rab, who is the CEO of the European Organization for Sustainable Development. And they're going to talk a bit more about how Africa can transform itself using development finance. Big round of applause.
Do I have time for When I have time for the keynote speaker, I'm rushing somewhere. I just came to bless you, and then you can speak later. They will tell me. Because I don't have time to. You can speak later.
Okay, thank you.
So please, let's get moving.
All right, Your Excellency, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite the Minister of Finance to officially give us his words of welcome and to invite His Excellency to speak. Please welcome Honorable Mataya Kasaija. Honorable Matia, not Mataya.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, First Lady Mama, colleague Minister Anite, members of Parliament, Your Excellencies and the members of the Diplomatic Corps, Head of Development Finance Institutions and partner organizations, representatives of civil society and the private sector, distinguished delegates and ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I welcome all of you to this Development Finance Summit. For some of you who are coming from afar, welcome to the welcome to the Pearl of Africa. This part of the world, which I'm certain you have started experiencing, is a good place to live due to its exceptionally hospitable people, like you have already witnessed, incredible natural beauty, rich cultural diversity, and the unique adventure opportunities it offers, including wildlife viewing, hiking, and water sports. I call upon all of you to take some time and witness what the Pearl of Africa has to offer. This summit offers us a timely platform to reflect on key opportunities and persistent challenges that Africa and Uganda must address in order to realize true socio-economic transformation. Africa has immense potential and is poised to grow faster than most regions of the world. According to the World Economic Forum, 5 of the 10 fastest growing economies globally are in Africa. In 2024, while the world economy grew at 2.7% and advanced economies at 1.7%, Sub-Saharan Africa grew at 4.1%, and Uganda achieved 6.0 growth rate. This signifies the great opportunities African economies have to foster the economic transformation. The Ugandan economy has demonstrated resilience in the face of global and domestic challenges. The country sustained growth even during the COVID-19 pandemic and continued to perform strongly in its aftermath. Growth is projected to accelerate to between 7% and 10% from 2027, when oil production commences. The government's focus remains on expanding the GDP from nearly $50 billion in 2023 to $500 billion by 2040. To achieve this aspiration, government has prioritized 4 anchor areas: agro-industrial development, tourism development, mineral-based development, including oil and gas, and the petrochemical industry, and science, technology, ICT, and innovation, including the creative industry. These sectors were chosen for their strong multiplier effects in terms of production, employment, and linkages. Therefore, significant investments are required to realize this ambition, and the Uganda Development Bank is expected to play a pivotal role in unlocking financing for these sectors. Many African countries have set these growth targets through their respective national development plans. Governments are doing their best to mobilize the needs, resources to finance these targets. And the national development banks remain the key allies in this pursuit to mobilize concessional finance and deploying it in the economy. Ladies and gentlemen, national development banks are thus expected to support our government's effort of informing our economies, of transforming our economies through industrialization and business growth. These banks can use their expertise to mobilize finance for public infrastructure projects such as energy, transport, and water infrastructure, which are the bridging and the fundamental resources needed for accelerated, sustainable, and inclusive growth. I am certain that this summit provides an opportunity to share ideas on how national development banks can catalyze and support our national development agendas and leverage on the key partnerships to mobilize concessional funds and effectively invest in the growth-enhancing sector. I therefore call upon all participants to engage constructively, to share openly, and to commit to bold ideas that will shape Africa's development finance architecture for generations to come. Together, let us ensure that the national development banks continue to act as catalysts for inclusive and sustainable growth. I wish you a fruitful deliberation and a successful summit. Thank you. Now it is my pleasure to invite you, Your Excellency, to tell us the story.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and other ministers, the management and of the UDB and the board, members of the diplomatic corps, all attendants. I'm happy you have organized this summit to discuss the issue of development financing. And I have, when I sat here and started listening, I jogged down 11 points. Point number one is what Dr. Mbabazi said in her prayers, which were vision and integrity. The managers of Africa's economies must have vision and integrity. If you have those two, chances are good that you may do something. But most of the time, many of the people have neither. Neither vision and much less integrity. That's where the problem is. So this is point number one. You examine that. Vision, vision, vision. What do you want to achieve? Because the African economies at independence, like the economy of Uganda, you remember I've been telling you, was just producing a few raw materials. The 3 C's, 3 T's. 3 C's, coffee, copper, and cotton. 3 T's, tobacco, tourism, and tea. as raw materials. And by 1962, it was covering only 9% of the homesteads. That small economy, that small island economy was covering only 9% of the homesteads. 91% were outside the money economy. So, if you came to manage this type of economy, what was the vision? Because remember, I've been telling you that policymakers are like doctors. You must do the understanding the disease and then get a prescription. Diagnosis, you must have the diagnosis. This is the vision we are talking about. What is the diagnosis of this society? What is their problem? In my speech recently in the NRM conference, I told you again what our analysis is. First of all, to involve the whole society into the money economy. Because Africa is 250 years behind Europe. In 1400, we were at the same level as Europe. But by the time of the French Revolution, because of the problems Africa had, Europe had metamorphosed where Africa was stagnant or even regressing. Because if you look at the French Revolution, 1789, which is 250 years ago, more or less, they already had 4 social classes: the feudalists, the middle class, the bourgeoisie, the working class, the proletariat, and the peasants. Here in Africa, in Uganda, we still had 3 classes that time: the feudalists, the artisans, and the farmers. We did not have a middle class. We did not have a skilled working class. By independence, we were worse off because the artisan class had been killed by the European imports. Because the artisan class was producing products for us. They were producing everything. In that society, there was no unemployment. The society before colonialism, there was no unemployment. There were emyoga, what I tell you, the skills, the blacksmith, the carpenter, But by 1962, all these were dead. Everything was coming from outside. Hoes, pangas, plates, what? So the artisan class had died, the feudal class had died, we were only with the peasants. So this is the analysis that you should, those who say they were planning should have been looking at. And that's what we have been looking at. And that's why we said that number 1, the way we have done it, the 5 phases, which I don't want to repeat here. So this is number 1, vision, and then integrity, no corruption. So in Africa, I have seen two problems: neither vision nor corruption, no integrity. That's number 1. Number two, if you think in the local way, you think better. Banyankole have a proverb. Gariembevo, gashikire kiteme. The month of September, this one we are entering into, in our language is called Nyakanga. Nyakanga, Yangembevo Munju. Okwanga is to refuse. So the month of September is the month of refusal. And what do you refuse? You should refuse that all the seeds are planted. You should have no seed in the house if you want to catch up with the season. Nyakanga is the month of when all the seeds should have been planted. But then they have a proverb. They say, Gariembevo, gashikire kiteme. The teeth of the unwise. Our people used to keep seeds. They would select seeds and keep them, hang them above the fireplace so that it remains well dehydrated and no mold. But when somebody would be hungry, he would cook the seeds and eat them. And when the time for planting, he has nothing to plant. The teeth with which he ate the seeds smile at the garden. Kativanange nasimba chiwano. What will I plant? He laughs. So this is the problem of the African middle class. They don't understand saving. They eat the seeds. If you eat the seeds, what will you plant? It is better to be hungry and you starve yourself, but not eat the seeds, plant the seeds. You need to keep the seeds whatever happens. This is the message. Gariembevo, gashikire kiteme. The teeth of the unwise eat the seeds and smile at the garden because they have nothing to plant. That is number 2, point 2. Number 3, Engumba versus Kuzara. I don't know whether these Ugandans understand these words. Engumba is a cow or a person that cannot give children. Okuzara. So therefore, when we have got the scarce resources, we should always see which projects are good, but they are Ngumba. They will not produce children quickly. And which ones will produce children quickly? In the planning, which will produce results. That's why, for instance, recently, we've been having a struggle about the PDM. We had to divert money to PDM to help the villagers join the money economy. And when they do that, production goes up. You still have, of course, had other demands like infrastructure. Yes, you can have a nice road, but you have nothing you are transporting on that road because there's no production. So that balancing between the results generating projects versus the ones which will either take long or not at all just for use. Because like the tarmac roads, by 1965, we traveled in a school bus from Barara all the way to Soroti to play cricket and I think football also. That road was already tarmac from Barara all the way to Soroti. And we have done it a number of times since that time. But you still have poor people along the road. So that's why we had to say, let's decelerate a bit on the money we are putting in infrastructure and deal with these people who are outside the money economy. Give them capital, cheap capital, so that they join the money economy. That is a third issue I would like you to think about. Now, when we came into government, our technocrats, the Kahozas, the Muteviles, Kasami, working with the other groups from Washington, from those places. One time I wanted to go to Washington and attend that board. They said, no, you are banned. I said, why? Only the Minister of Finance can come here. But the Minister of Finance is my appointee. Why do you stop me from coming? They have never told me why. Why they don't want me to go and is the World Bank here? Baroa na World Bank. Jebari, where are they? Habari. So, the development financing by the Mutevere, they told me that the development financing, there was even a, do you remember a man called Slade? Slade, was he here for World Bank or what? The American man called Slade. You are all young people, you don't know. He was here for the World Bank. And then I said, okay, the development funding which was there was for infrastructure. But also, not well thought out infrastructure. Sometimes they would want the money to go to social infrastructure, schools, health centers. Very little for the economic infrastructure, the roads and so on. But even when they talk of the roads, they never mention the railway. Never mention the railway, never mention electricity. So you wonder. And yet these are people who say they are capitalists. But how can a capitalist not know how money is generated? How will you have affordable inputs in production if you don't deal with electricity, you don't deal with the railway? Okay, you may spend on the roads, but the road transport is very expensive. Much more expensive than rail transport. And then, of course, you need than water transport. And of course, you need electricity. Big battle to get money from some of the sources for electricity, for the railway. Recently, we got something from the European Union for the old railway, the meter gauge. I want to thank the European Union. Thank you very much. Apoyo Matek. Katonda Wavere. But big battle. So therefore, you find, yes, even when there is progress, there is an irrational situation. A few roads where all the traffic is. The cargo is there, the passengers are there, the petrol tankers are there. It is totally irrational. The rational way is to have the railway transport the cargo cheaply, have the pipeline taking the fuel, and then you can have the light cargo and the passengers on the road. But all that rationalization is not possible because funding for infrastructure is very difficult to get, and when you get it, it is only for the roads, never for the railway, never for the electricity. And then for the private sector, why not have development financing for the private sector? Those friends of mine whom I started with here, including that man whom you don't remember, they said, no, Mr. Museveni, you, government, work on some of the infrastructure, not even all of it. Private capital will come and do the wealth creation, the private sector. Private sector, from where? And yet these African economies, they have a lot of problems. First of all, the fragmentation of the market. Because you make a study when you are still here, since it's a summit. Summit is a very serious matter. You make a summary between 1978 and now, when Deng Xiaoping in China opened up the market of China, and now, how much FDI, foreign direct investment, has gone to China, which is not, according to some of the people, not democratic, and how much has come to the democratic Africa. Please, total it up and tell me before, at the end. Says, and democratic China has attracted, I don't know how much, $1 trillion, and the democratic Africa. Fragmented, democratic fragmented Africa has attracted so much. You will see the difference. I haven't checked, but I'm sure the difference is big. So you still have that disability of a fragmented market. But of course, we, the freedom fighters, saw it from the beginning. That's why from the 1960s we are struggling for integration of the market, including even political integration where possible. Now, because of that, because FDI was rushing to China, because it was a very attractive big market. Once you are there, you have got 1.4 billion people to buy from you. I'm sure this is the difference between the United States and Latin America. Latin America has got a lot of natural resources. Those countries, they have got a lot of water, a lot of minerals, but why are they poor? For me, I think that one of the problems is the market fragmentation. But here, therefore, from the beginning, I could see that relying on the private sector to be the one to bring money to deal with wealth creation after you have dealt a bit with the infrastructure was not correct. There was a mistake there. Because your own people did not have the savings, and they were not even saving, even when they have money, they squander it. But the foreign investment could not easily be attracted compared to, for instance, China. So that's why, from the beginning, I said we need a UDB, we need an Ojangore Banang. We need a UDB, we need a government institution which is not looking for profit, to keep giving some capital, not only for infrastructure, but even for wealth creation. You know the wealth of Gaga. I tell you, difference between Nkulakulana, development, and wealth of Gaga. Difference. People don't know this. They just talk, yeah, development, transformation, blah, 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 blah. Yes, the two are different. Wealth belongs to me, to my family, to my company. Development is for the drunkards, for the witch doctors, for everybody. Abasize ekiro batambulira ku luguudo bagenda kusera. But wealth. And we are telling you that Madame, Mademoiselle, Monsieur, the way they speak in the African Union, when you go there, Madame, Mademoiselle, Monsieur. The wealth is in 4 sectors: commercial agriculture, manufacturing and artisanship, services like hotels and so on, and ICT. This is where the wealth is. Yes, some of the this is where wealth is. Of course, with very rich people, they can also own roads. You can have somebody owning the road and takes road tolls. But for us, if we have a business in agriculture, in manufacturing or artisanship, in services and ICT, that's where things are easier now. So therefore, the other position of the people whom I was dealing with here when we started, that deal with the roads, wealth will be dealt with by the private sector. I want you to check that, because the private sector here doesn't have enough money. The private sector outside may not know, may not be so much attracted as much. So what do? That's why our answer was a UDB, our own. Kaweli midday, tugamba tutya. Kaweli midday, ekira mbegerako. Siwe tuwe tugamba. Abaganda wewe wano banani. Bagwa abaganda banani. Bano bali awo. So Kaweli midday. That's why Kawedi means what is yours is more under your control. That's why I wanted the UDB. And even if we had to put more money and more money and more money, the Twenyiga and squeeze ourselves, I think this is correct, UDB. Because if you say private capital, my question in Luo is tie kwene. Private capital tie kwene. Who is it? And that's where, again, our other Uganda proverb, nanyini mufu yakola ki? Nanyini mufu yakola ki? Ani asobola kunyamba banange jangu kumuzindalo nyambeko. Kandi Abaganda we bali wano. You Wampara man, are you Uganda? You go and sit.
Seba President, nanyini mufu ya kwata awawunya.
You translate it in English.
The one who has a dead body actually touches where it smells most.
If the dead body in the past, when there was no proper management of dead bodies, the relative of the dead person is the one to touch where the smelling is worse. So, the owner of the dead bodies ourselves. So this strengthens my argument for the UDB, whatever happens. Now, but alongside all this, the struggle for, because you remember these businesses, in order for them to be successful, they need low input costs, low cost of electricity, low cost of transport, which we are struggling with, low cost of money, but they also need market. You must get somebody to buy what you produce. So, as strategists, we must struggle for the integration of the African market as a matter of life and death, not just talk about it and then go. No, it is decisive. Now, of course, I hear that there is patient capital abroad. That's what I hear. That there are groups, pension funds, and so on in some of these countries which we liberated from poverty. Because remember, the African slaves are the ones who liberated the Europeans from poverty by working for nothing. To have people working for you from 1470 there, when they started taking slaves from West Africa, to about 1900. Free labor. Why would you not be rich? So that capital there is there. People whom we liberated from poverty, they have a...
From visiting big tech companies like Google, Microsoft, and Coursera, sailing under the Golden Gate Bridge, exploring the beautiful city of San Francisco, and hanging out with Stanford University students, it's been so much fun learning and immersing ourselves in these new surroundings.
You are the donor, you fellows, you are the donors. They don't call you to Paris Club, but you are the donors. Because you donated in the past, you are donating even now. Because when you produce a kilo of coffee, and you get $2.5 a kilo, and somebody goes and processes it. What do you call this group? Nestle, and the other one, Nescafe. They go and add value, and for them they get $40. You have got 2.5, he has got 40 or $25, whatever. Who is the donor? You are the donor, but you don't know. But still, we have no grudge with those people. Africans are forgiving people. We have forgotten about all that. If they are clever, they can bring that capital here. If we are also clear and invest in this private sector, even if they invest themselves, their own companies, or lend to us, and we pay them back, they will benefit. Because the Chinese are doing it. We have used Chinese money to build a Simba Dam, produce electricity at 4.8 cents a kilowatt hour. We have used the Chinese money to build Karuma at an electricity cost of 4.8 cents, I think, also, per kilowatt hour. The one we built with private capital from the West, Bujagari, what is the cost of power? 16 cents. Are these people, do they hope to go to heaven or what? Total bankruptcy. No vision. That's why Mbaba should write that prayer of hers and saturate it. Because she prayed for vision and integrity. So, if the Chinese can lend us and we produce electricity at 4.8 cents, and why would other people not see this? And this is because we have not finished paying the Chinese. Once we finish paying them, the cost of electricity will be 1.2 cents per kilowatt hour. So if you are talking about development, transformation, blah, 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 what are you talking about if you don't talk about the cost of electricity, having affordable electricity? What are you talking about? That's why I don't go to these meetings. Even when I go there, I sleep most of the time. Because they are talking nothing. So the capital is there. And if they were clever, they would come and would develop together. The capital is there. The Chinese who are just newcomers have been sending money there. You look at the factories. My girl, Anite, the 9,000 factories we have in Uganda now, how many are Chinese, how many, you tell them if you know from your head. The Kakwas are very clever people. One of them was Idi Amin.
Thank you, Your Excellency, although you've deflated me.
No, I have upgraded you.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency. Because of your vision and the policies of the NRM, you've been able to attract factories in Uganda to 9,000, employing 1.2 million people. And out of that, 949 are actually Chinese-owned.
And the Indians?
Sorry, I don't have the statistics.
Go and get the figures and tell the conference later.
Okay, sir.
So you find that the Chinese are contributing to both the infrastructure, but also to the development of the private sector, using the money they are getting from their place there. So why can't our other friends, because I'm speaking English, I'm not speaking Chinese. I'm actually a relative of the British, culturally. So why would they not see this? Now, finally, what is crucial for if people are not greedy, because the problem of the private capital, the private banks, commercial banks, their problem is Omururu. Omururu, too much greed for money. The interest rate is what? 22%? What is the interest rate of Jangori? Of the commercial banks?
In the region of 22%.
22%.
Yes, Your Excellency.
And then quickly, within a year, you must pay back. That is per annum. Huh? Jangori.
Your Excellency, that's per annum.
So, if you lend me 1 million, and I must pay you 1.22 million in a year, how will I manage to do a serious business other than importing dead people's hair from China and selling it quickly and then making money. So those commercial banks are for making Africa dependent on imports from China, from Dubai, from I don't know where. Because that's the only way you can make money quickly. You buy wine, you buy spirits, perfumes, like that. Those are the only ones where you can be able to pay back. So therefore, the answer for all this is UDB. This one is a sure guarantee because this is ours. All the others may come, may not come, but they are not under our control. So therefore, once we are clear about this one, then the final question is, Mwaba UDB Mnonyachi? What are you looking for, UDB? Because even Ojangwele was 15%. 15%. Are you going to go to heaven or you have given up heaven? Why would you have interest rate of 15% when the inflation rate in Uganda is always less than 5%? Because what you want is not to have your money deteriorate because of inflation. Our inflation rate is always below 5%. I think it's now 3% or something. Huh? About 3%. So why wouldn't you manage with 10%? But this, of course, means that the general manager must get less salary, and all the other crowd of parasites in that place, cleaners and I don't know what, that if he's a cleaner in UDB, he's a more enhanced cleaner than the other one in the ministry. If you had a modest lifestyle, you, the bureaucrats of these development institutions, just like these Asians. Until recently, I was hearing that a professor in India would be earning about $400. Check that. The salary structure of the Indians, Chinese, what, from the 60s up to, yeah, but you will see. Their modest lifestyle would enable them to give affordable money to their clients. So therefore, these are my comments. I will miss the keynote address, but I know how to read. If he has written a speech, he will send it to me. I will read it. I will also answer him in writing. So with these few words, Apoyo Rubanga, God bless you, and I wish you good luck. What do I do? I open the conference?
Yes, Your Excellency.
I have opened it.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we please be upstanding? Let's give a round of applause to His Excellency and Mama Janet. Ladies and gentlemen, let's remain upstanding for the East African anthem and then the national anthem. Your Excellency, I'd like to call upon the Managing Director together with her distinguished guests to approach for a picture. I'd also like to quickly ask the board of UDB to stand by together with the staff of UDB. Kindly prepare yourselves because His Excellency is in a rush, so we don't want you to miss your opportunity. Please leave the phones. We'll make sure they're safe. Board and staff of UDB, kindly be on standby. Kindly position yourself because right afterwards we'll have board and staff of UDB. Staff members of the UDB, kindly line yourselves up here. Quickly afterwards, we'd like to have His Excellency take pictures with you. Please, on this side. Thank you very much. Staff members, kindly join behind. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you very much, Mama Janet. Let's give them a round of applause.
Untuk bawah. Oke. Tenang, kami.